All right, so hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. As you all know, this is Plannr Consulting's Mental Health Awareness Workshop. We're so excited that you're here. We hope you learn a lot. So I have just a quick little presentation to get us started, just about what Plannr Consulting is, who we are, things like that. Then we will get right into our presentations. So yeah, all right. So first off, what is Plannr Consulting? We are a fiscally sponsored 501c3 youth-led international nonprofit organization. We offer free personalized peer mentorship sessions to enhance student health. We focus on spreading mental health awareness through monthly interactive campaigns, workshops, things like that. In addition, we also have just like a community platform and a safe space for students to talk. Yeah, so we added our socials there. If you want to follow us, definitely give us a follow, give us a like. And then also our website is there if you want to learn more about our services, if you want to get involved, things like that. So, okay, quick couple rules and reminders. Please be respectful and kind. I think that's a given one, but you always just want to add that in there. You can have your camera off. We would love to see everyone, but again, this is being recorded. So if you're not comfortable, we totally get it. That camera can stay off. So yeah, if you have any questions for our presenters during our presentation, feel free to ask just in the chat. Yeah, okay, hold on real quick. Let me fix something. Okay, so, all right, let's get started here. So our speakers and the schedule. So first off, we'll have Ro talking about eating disorders, mood disorders, and personality disorders, yes. She's a psychology student, so that's great. Then we will have Densika talking about the mental health stigma, mental health and illness like myths and facts. And then I will be talking about my experience with mental health and how to get help, and just like some more resources and things like that. So we will jump right into it. Let me, actually, do I have any other slide? No, okay, cool. So if my technology will stop being weird. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, cool. So now, Ro, you're good to go.
You have to turn your microphone on. You have your microphone.
Are you good, Ro, or are we having just some technical difficulties?
Your microphone is off.
Oh, you can't hear us? Oh.
Join audio.
On mute. All right, so do you want to rejoin? Let's have you rejoin, and you know what? While we get this figured out, we'll go to Densika. So maybe you want to rejoin and see if you can do that again with the audio. Yeah? All right. So, okay, yeah, she's going to rejoin, but for now, we'll just do a little switch in the schedule. We'll pass over to Densika, who will be presenting her screen and talking about mental health stigma, if you're good with that, Densika. Oh, no one can unmute. Okay, let me see what I can do here. Oh boy, we love technical difficulties. Okay.
Join audio.
Okay, maybe now people can unmute.
Okay, yeah, I can unmute now.
All right, there we go. Perfect.
And
all right.
Would you mind enabling the participant screen sharing so that I can share my screen?
Oh boy, okay. Let me see if I can do this. Advanced share options. Who can share? All right, I think you should be able to share. Is it letting you or no?
Yeah, everyone see this?
There we go. It's
okay,
loading for me. It said, oh, there we go. You're good to go now. Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys.
Okay, awesome. Can everyone see this? Yep, okay. So hey everyone, before I begin, I just want to apologize for not having my camera on. It hasn't been working for a couple of days and unfortunately I couldn't get it fixed in time. But regardless, I still hope you enjoy the presentation. So today I'll be covering who am I, what is stigma, how is stigma harmful, myth versus facts, how to break the stigma, and some contact information. Before I begin, if you feel like you were not represented in this presentation in any way, please know that these topics are vast and you can have full-length discussions. Everything that will be mentioned does not represent all of mental health or mental illness. So who am I? My name is Densika and I'm a grade 12 IB student. I'm also the co-founder of Mindscape, a mental health youth organization that aims to break down the idea that mental health is only important when you hit rock bottom. Our main platform is Instagram, but we also have TikTok, LinkedIn, and upload written pieces on Medium. Ultimately, through Mindscape, we want to create a safe, inclusive, and welcoming environment for everyone. So to talk about mental health, we need to address the stigma behind it. So what is stigma? Stigma is when someone sees you in a different way because of distinguishing characteristics, such as your mental illness, a visible disability, your skin color, etc. Discrimination is when someone treats you in a negative way because of a particular characteristic, such as the ones that I mentioned. Both stigma and discrimination can make mental health problems worse and can trap a person in a negative and toxic cycle with their mental health that can become difficult to break. So a question for you is, how can stigma be harmful specifically? You can either unmute your mic if you're able to, or you can put it in the chat. I'll give everyone just a minute if you're typing. But yeah, people might not be able to get help, prevent people from getting help.
Start to believe what they're told.
Yep, that's another good one. Okay, we got some really good answers. Trying to take on the characteristics that are assumed of you. That's a really good one too. Okay, awesome. So those are all good answers. There are many negative effects due to stigma, and the ones I listed here are the primary effects of stigma that can develop into some other issues. Of course, these are only some. Firstly, stigma can cause a lack of understanding by those around you. One of the biggest reasons is because of the way media portrays mental health. Before, people with mental illness were portrayed as violent or dangerous and individuals who can't live a normal life. However, many of us these days have come to understand that it's not always true, and that's mainly due to the fact that there are many people who are trying to destigmatize mental health. But another perspective on that is that these days, mental health can also seem to be glamorized. More often than not, many people start and finish their research on social media, but those posts are made in a way that's easy to read, and while it's done in good intentions, sometimes they end up giving a look or a picture for a certain illness, so it becomes counterproductive. Mental health and mental illness is a spectrum, and it doesn't look the same for everyone. Giving it a quote-unquote look can be very damaging. Media plays a huge role in how mental health and mental illness is perceived. And depending on how much of an understanding the people in your life have, it can make it harder for you to be understood. This can lead to a reluctance in asking for help, because you may feel like you don't have support. And because you're reluctant to ask for help, you sit with your thoughts, which can turn in on you and cause negative feelings towards yourself. You may start to wonder if you're faking what you're feeling or whether or not you deserve to get help. As you can see, these are all interconnected in a cycle. As I mentioned before, these are all primary effects of stigma. And because of these thoughts and feelings, the relationships in your life may suffer, or you may start to have difficulties in academics or financial life. And this all further negatively affects you. So given the different effects of stigma, many misunderstandings do arise. And sometimes these misunderstandings can become popular beliefs. A really common belief is that if I talk to my doctor about mental health, it will affect my job or education. At least in Ontario, where I live, you are protected by Ontario human rights from facing any type of discrimination. Usually, they do not ask about your mental illness when applying for a job. With regards to education, your teachers and the other appropriate adults should be able to accommodate you if you need any accommodations. Another common belief is that therapy is unnecessary when you can talk to trusted people in your life, or that therapy is useless or that therapy doesn't help. Social support is important, especially when you are in a low point in your life. However, relationships with our family and friends are reciprocal, where you typically go back and forth supporting each other. With therapy, the entire session is devoted to you. In therapy, you are also allowed to let it all out in the open. Sometimes with friends and family, we may tend to censor ourselves, and that can be due to many reasons, such as we don't want to feel judged or we don't want to hurt their feelings. And finally, with therapy, it's not a be-all or end-all situation. You know yourself the best. You are allowed to tell therapists that they're not understanding you, and you are also allowed to switch therapists to find a better fit for yourself. Finally, if they're having a good day, they're getting better. Healing in any situation is not linear. It's important to be realistic about your own recovery and another individual's recovery. Sometimes you can feel like you're taking one step backwards for every 2 steps forward, but none of your mistakes and relapses should discredit the progress you make. If you break your bones, you don't automatically expect your bones to be healed the next day. It takes time, and it's no different with your mental health. Sometimes it may be a longer recovery road, and you may need help, such as medication, to help you recover, but that's all okay. So as we can tell, stigma does play a big role in mental health and an individual's road to recovery. So how do we break the stigma? Firstly, like any other situations, try to educate yourself and those around you. There are many misconceptions about mental health, people with mental illness, and services regarding mental health. Educating yourself about signs and symptoms, myths, causes, and available resources will help you be a better support for those who need it. Another important thing is to talk about both the good and the bad. It's important to be realistic about our mental health and not create a false depiction of what it is. There'll be good days and bad days, and it's equally important to show both. Something that can help with creating a realistic image is to be conscious of the media you consume. If anyone that you follow on Instagram or keep up with is doing more harm than good for mental health, follow them. Make sure to follow diverse influencers and pages as well, so you don't look at mental health under only one lens. We may not be able to control what others post, but we are able to control what media we see. In addition to this, be conscious of the language you use. Certain words that are normalized, such as crazy, can be harmful to someone who's working on recovery. When certain words become used in our daily vocabulary, we may unknowingly reinforce an existing stigma. And finally, listen and amplify voices. It's important to recognize that, like with many other issues, we need to consider intersectionality. Not everyone has the same experience. Certain characteristics such as gender, sexual orientation, financial situation, religion, and race will have different effects on their mental health. It's crucial that we uplift different perspectives and voices so that those who are unable to use their voice will be heard. The road to breaking the stigma around mental health is a long one. But if we all play our part in even just educating ourselves so we can recognize when we need to take care of our own mental health, it becomes easier to walk down that road. And finally, this is just some of my contact information, my personal email and Instagram, as well as Mindscape email and Mindscape Instagram. Mindscape is always open to any ideas, any suggestions that you may have of any content that you want to see, any activities that you want us to host. So feel free to message us. And thank you.
Awesome. That was a really wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Really great. Yes, claps. Awesome. So great. We hope you guys enjoyed. Again, sorry for the little bit of technical difficulties. Let's try to pass on to Ro, if you can unmute, Ro.
I can now. I don't know what the issue was. I was unable to unmute earlier.
Settings, but
that's okay. That's all right. All right, let me do share screen here. Beautiful. All right, I think we are here, and I will start presenting. All right. So instead of a mental health professional, I'm going to be filling in as a relatively educated college student studying psychology, and we're just going to go over some like an overview of some basics of mental illness and what it means to be stable and mentally healthy. All right, so a little bit about me. I included a couple pictures of my bunnies here just for some cuteness, but I am a senior at Ramapo College of New Jersey. I'm going there for psychology, and I also study creative writing because I really like writing as well. I did write a poetry book called Easy to Breathe Without a Noose, and it was inspired by my psychological childhood experiences. But after college, I am hoping to pursue a clinical and counseling psychology master's at a university near me. And I also did conduct a study about images and emotions, since I am so interested in how emotions waver with things presented in front of you, whether it be images or people. But we are going to start with feeding and eating disorders. I know traditionally they have been known to be called eating disorders, but in recent years, and I believe in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychological Disorders, they have now edited it to be called feeding and eating disorders, because sometimes it's not exactly necessarily with eating, but it's more so with feeding. So what we just call it fed, right? Okay. So as for the definition of fed, it can be a range of disorders that are characterized by abnormal eating habits that can negatively impact your health and in turn impacts your ability to function in various forms of life. And I know this is a lot to take in, but I just wanted to include some different types here. So we have the most common ones that are anorexia, bulimia, and perhaps binge eating disorders. And as you look over all of the different disorders on the screen, I know some of them may seem quite unfamiliar. I was actually unfamiliar with a handful as well, specifically muscle dysmorphia. I wasn't even sure that that was considered a feeding and eating disorder. But looking around the screen, you can see that most of them involve an overweight self-view, regardless of your true weight. It can be characterized by avoiding certain foods or restricting intake. You can desire to have a muscular physique or an unsafe obsession with healthy food. You can have a loss of control over eating, purge, fasting, etc. So there are a lot of different factors that go into feeding and eating disorders, and they affect you on kind of what I like to consider to be a multipath model. I actually discussed this in my abnormal psych class. So a multipath model is essentially 4 ways, right? So we have 4 paths. Usually at the top, it's kind of mainly biological, because at the basis of ourselves is our biology. So there are some genetic factors that can play into this. It can be familial. It's not exactly genetic, but through the practice of social cues and perhaps like seeing older siblings do this, you may be more adept to develop a feeding and eating disorder as well. Or it could be just psychological. It could be social, and it could also be socio-cultural. But concerning feeding and eating disorders, this would most likely fall under the psychological category or social category. And I will also talk about the other disorders as well and which category they might fall under. But we will move on to mood disorders. And mood disorders can be a range of things. Traditionally, some people may group them with personality disorders, but that is actually a different topic entirely. But mood disorders are characterized by the elevation, so it can be the heightening or the lowering of a person's mood, and that causes a pretty large impairment in their overall functioning, whether it be socially, in work, even alone. You know, you can definitely feel a change in mood when you're by yourself at home and you perhaps have no other social surroundings to occupy yourself with. And the different types that we have here are traditionally major depressive or bipolar, but there are a few others that I did include. And by the way, just as an aside, I am getting all of these disorders from my abnormal psych textbook. So all of the definitions are true. I promise I did not make any of these up. I just kind of summed it up in a couple bullet points here. So major depressive, as we are most familiar with, which is most socially known and also quite stigmatized, as Densika said as well. It includes the loss of interest or pleasure for at least 2 weeks. That is traditionally considered to be an episode. So when somebody says that they were having a depressive episode, that could mean that they were feeling these feelings for maybe even a week. You know, it's the 2 weeks is technically a clinical definition. That would be where you would possibly be diagnosed with it. But even if you're feeling it for a week, that doesn't mean that you're not experiencing symptoms of depression. So don't let it get to you that just because you're not meeting a certain criteria, that doesn't mean necessarily that you don't have it. And again, I cannot diagnose anybody. I am just simply here just to educate. So, but if you are experiencing any of these, you know, maybe you're getting some more light shed on the subject. But so moving on to bipolar. Bipolar is traditionally characterized by the highs and the lows of depression. Now, I know depression is usually considered to be a very low mood disorder where you're just very gloomy, you don't have much energy, you don't have a drive, you're seen by other people as lazy, even though you're not lazy. But bipolar includes mania, which is an emotional high. Now, there are two types of bipolar. One is your primary symptom. So for most of the time, you're experiencing various levels of mania, which includes daily, very quick cycling of mania and depression. So it's kind of like a wavelength here. But in bipolar 2, you have recurrent episodes of hypomanic and depressive symptoms, but the mania is mild, a bit more mild, and it doesn't impact your social or occupational functioning, but it is, trying to think of the word here, it is apparent enough so that it can be observed. So there's a lot of disorders that are kind of borderline in terms of being diagnosed. But again, here our main goal is not to be diagnosed, right? It's just a matter of recognizing what you're feeling and, possibly looking into what you may be feeling and trying to find an answer and coping skills and coping mechanisms. And that's all we want to do. So I'll then move on to personality disorders. And personality disorders are characterized by an impairment in self. So it is definitely rooted in your self-image here. And it impacts the way you interpersonally function. And you have certain traits that are inflexible and long-standing, right? So I like to say that personality type disorders are my favorite. There's so many. I actually did, I just finished my neuropsych class, and I wrote a 15-page paper on borderline personality disorder, and I learned so much about it. Oh my goodness. I also did a presentation on obsessive compulsive disorder, but we're not talking about that here. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder is different from obsessive compulsive disorder. OCD, OCPD, similar, different things, right? Okay, so focusing on personality disorders, we have some ones that you may be familiar with, antisocial, narcissistic, as we know, borderline, possibly histrionic. But as you can see, the symptoms are relatively in the same basket. We're all looking here at social relationship detachment, a bit of a failure to conform with social codes, mood fluctuations, and self-image, right? So essentially, you are viewed by the outside public as just personally different from the norm, right? So there's a stigma attached to how others view you. And in turn with that, you have a hard time adjusting, but we can move forward. We can move forward with that. So how can we move forward with this, right? It may seem very challenging to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I know how hard that can be. I can guarantee a lot of other people do in this room as well. But there are ways that we can do that, and we have to focus on a variety of different topics. So first and foremost, we have biophysical. And you, regardless of what you're experiencing, how you're feeling, you can focus on eating healthy. So just by having a healthy diet, getting all of the colors on your plate, getting some regular exercise. It doesn't have to be anything excessive. Even just taking daily walks would be fantastic. Getting proper sleep, that can be very challenging to some. I know that somatic symptom disorders are quite prominent, especially now with it being so popular that we're on our phones constantly, and it makes us have quite a challenging time to go to sleep. And also a lack of substance use would do you very, very well in terms of managing your disorder. Moving on to psychological, just various forms of self-care definitely assists in the lessening of it, whether it be mental self-care, physical self-care. I personally love physical self-care. I engage in, just taking a shower, having a nice like bath spa day, just feeling clean, and then that's my way of taking care of my mind is through my body. But also engaging in mindfulness, whether this be yoga, just deep breathing, meditating, etc. Grounding techniques are great. box breathing, various forms of breathing. You can breathe like in a square, 4, 4, 4. That's beautiful. I know like there's various different numbers, whether it be 7, 3, 4, where you breathe in, hold, and then breathe out. The world is your oyster here, all right? And then just recognizing and avoiding burnout and perfectionism. I know that we're in a society where social media is so prominent, where everything looks to be perfect. So we definitely have a lot of challenges trying to hold ourselves to those standards when those standards aren't even correct, because now we can Photoshop videos. So who even knows what's true at this point anymore? But just keeping in mind of that and avoiding burnout, but just recognizing when it occurs will also help you as well. Socially, you're going to definitely want to have a stable support system of friends and family. You know, this doesn't have to be too many people. Just some people you can not necessarily be codependent on, because codependency is not a good thing, but who can be there for you when you do need them, and making sure your work and school environment is positive and productive and doesn't harm your mental or physical well-being. And spiritually, I know that not all of us are spiritual, but it doesn't have to be necessarily religion. You could just believe in a higher belief. You could simply just have a nice set of morals, and you can have dreams, aspirations, goals, what you want to accomplish in your future. It can be as simple as that. But how can we achieve this? So I just essentially said this before, but I just wanted to have it spelled out for you on the page. So like I said, food groups and nutrients are definitely the main focus here. Exercising in the morning helps. I am quite frankly a fan of exercising at night, just because I like to take a shower before I go to bed, but exercising in the morning definitely gets you up and going and happy, and gets that serotonin where we want it to be. Getting roughly about 8 hours of sleep a night will also definitely make you feel well rested. I know that this can depend from person to person. Some people may be able to do 7, 9, etc. And in concern with your anyone's possible substance issues, don't feel afraid to go to a support group. You know, that's what they're there for, whether it be online, in person. There's no shame in it. I know plenty of people who it has helped, and there's a giant stigma associated with that, but I just think that if you really need the help, you should be able to get it, and if it's there for you, then go for it. You know, it's what you need. And moving on to some psychological things, there are tons of different techniques, like I mentioned here, sensory, pleasure, mental, spiritual, emotional, physical, social, self-care techniques, just anything that will just bring you happiness, essentially, is what we're going to focus on here, because I did read this textbook in my psychology class that mentioned a story about this man who was quite depressed, and he was depressed as a result of his job, and he was not able to leave his job because that was the only thing that was bringing the bread to the table. But they found out that what this man needed was a cow. So they gave him a cow in his spare time, and he would tend to the cow. It became his happiness. So even though he had this terrible job, which he hated, he could focus on this cow when he came home. And this was quite many years ago, but let your cow be your happiness. You know, find your cow. All right? Find your cow. But socially, like I said earlier, we're just going to focus on a support system. It can be 2 people. It can be, I would not suggest 1 person. I would not do that, because then they may feel a bit of the blame fall on their shoulders if they're not there for you. And if they're not there for you, you can alter how you react to the absence of their presence, because, you know, it technically it's not their job to be there for you constantly, but by controlling how you react to certain environments, whether it be some things you don't like, some things you're not able to control, will also definitely better you and your mental health in general. And then spiritually, we're just going to set achievable goals. A lot of people tend to set goals that are not achievable or have no plans. So planning out a path, making it achievable, treating others with kindness, and having that support system formed would be fantastic for you. And I also have these all in links. I would love to be able to send you my presentation or these links if possible, but that is all. I have links for all of these, so thank you.
Really great, amazing. And yes, we will definitely be sending all the participants through the Eventbrite the 2 presentations about the stigma and about the brief overview of the different mental illnesses and things like that. Yes, but thank you very much. That was really great, really comprehensive. Seems like the participants really liked it, so that's good. All right, so does anyone have any questions, either for Densika or for Ro? If not, I can get right into my presentation. You can ask in the chat. You can direct message to me. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. All right, so just give me a couple minutes to get myself set up here. I'm going to share my screen, share. Okay, I think it's working. Yes? Okay. Maybe not. No, okay. Some technical difficulties. Hold on, let's see what I can do here. Oh, it worked. Okay, cool, awesome. So I will get started with my presentation. So I'm going to be talking about my personal mental health story, and then also telling you about, how to get help if for yourself or for maybe a friend, a family member, someone that you see struggling. So yeah, let's get right into it. Okay. There we go. So about me. Hi, I'm Jaclyn. I'm an AP student from New York. I'm the R&D director, which is the research and development director here at Plannr. So I usually run these workshops. If you've been to our workshops, you've probably seen me. But yeah, I just like to be involved in my community. I like to volunteer, things like that. My free time, I like to bake, read, and hang out with my cat, who I've put there. He just turned 2. Yeah. But enough talking about my cat. In the future, I hope to become a social worker and just make a difference in the lives of others. So yeah, okay, that's a little bit about me. So then my mental health story. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder at 7. And I know we didn't talk too much about anxiety, but basically generalized anxiety specifically is just severe ongoing anxiety which may interfere with daily activities. And that's like the big thing is that everyone has anxiety, everyone feels a sense of anxiety, whether it's about homework or school or work or family, whatever. But it becomes a big issue when it starts to interfere with your daily activities. Like for me, when I was a little kid, I didn't want to do anything, good or bad, because I was just so nervous about the way that things would go, like the way that things work out. Oh, we're going to die in a car crash. Oh, like crazy things that probably most likely weren't going to happen. Made me on edge. It was like I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to go do fun things. I didn't want to go to the movies. I didn't want to go hang out with my friends because I was just so worried about like what was going to happen, even though all of these things were very abstract things that were most likely not going to happen. So yeah, some symptoms: feeling restless, easily fatigued, having difficulty concentrating, irritable, and then sleep problems. Sleep problems was always a big thing for me when I was younger. I couldn't sleep. Like sleeping was not my thing. I still not great with sleeping, but as I will talk about, it has gotten progressively better. I've went to therapy. I've learned coping skills, things like that. But yeah, so that was definitely interesting. My parents were like, oh no, this kid is way too nervous. Like they're like, this is not how like a little kid is supposed to be. And so I ended up going to therapy, which was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And through that I learned how to cope, like how to use coping skills. And I learned that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing to be going to therapy. There was definitely, as Densika had talked about, there was definitely a lot of stigma, especially where I grew up. It was like very, very taboo. Like you didn't ever talk about going to therapy. That's something you kept to yourself because that was shameful. And I learned that, through therapy, therapy wasn't bad. Therapy, in fact, helped me so much that I was able to grow up and be like a kid and actually do things. Yeah, and I wasn't so held back by that. Okay, So that's just my experience with anxiety. So now we're moving into, I was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder at 13 years old. It doesn't get better for a while. There's going to be another one we're going to go to too. But yes, I was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder at 13, which I know Ro did talk about, but I'll go over it again briefly. It is just depressed mood. It's not major depressive because it wasn't every day and it wasn't all day, but it was definitely there. So yeah, loss of interest in daily activities, sadness, tiredness, irritability, things like that. But yes, so that was just like another thing added kind of on top of already the anxiety that I had. But you know, like I said before, I kept going to therapy. I kept seeking help. I learned coping mechanisms. I tried all these different types of therapies. I went through a couple good therapists until like one clicked with me. So yeah, so then one more. Now at the age of 16, I'm almost 17, they were like, no, we got one more for you. So you can't technically be like diagnosed with bipolar until you're 18 because you're like still developing as a kid my age. Your mood instability could be from just hormones or something along those lines. So it's not like they're saying you definitely like have bipolar 2, but it's something that thank you to everyone being so nice in the chat. But it's definitely something that they're like, yeah, no, that this is pretty much it. So you know, basically what happened was the persistent depressive was out the window. So I just kind of have anxiety now, and this other added thing, which is bipolar 2, which we're still trying to like deal with. I have thankfully found like a good team, like my mental health team, which I'm very grateful to be able to have family and friends and a good therapist, and things like that. And yes, to Nicole in the chat, I will be talking about that because that is a very important thing and that's tough with the insurance and things like that. I will be getting to that, don't worry. Yes, so as Rose talked about, hypomanic episodes. It's not as severe as a manic episode necessarily because I'm not like going and jumping off buildings or doing crazy things like that. It's just kind of like I will talk really fast, fly from one idea to the next, exaggerated self-confidence. I definitely have that when I have a hypomanic episode, and talking very loud too. Now, I come from an Italian family and everyone talks very loud in an Italian family. So at first we were just like, oh, well, like I talk loud. Okay, everyone talks loud, you know? So, but yeah, that was the last thing that I've been diagnosed with. I'm hoping that now that I'm getting older, and now that I've learned these coping mechanisms, that I've been with, you know, a therapist and things like that, it is going to level out eventually, and it will. It already has. Like, even the fact that I'm here with you guys today talking about this, running this workshop, is like a huge thing for me. I would have never even thought at like my little like 8-9-year-old self that I could be doing this right now. And I'm really happy to be here and talking about my experiences. So yeah, the main thing really is, why am I telling you about this? The main thing is just to normalize talking about mental health struggles. It's normal to have a mental illness. It's normal to be struggling with mental health. It's an okay thing. It's the same as, oh, I sprained my ankle, I'm going to the doctor. I'm going to do physical, I don't know, do you do physical therapy for, I don't know, maybe you do physical therapy, you go to the doctor, you get medication, and you fix it, and there's nothing strange or weird about that. That should be exactly how it is for mental health, for mental illness. You should go to the doctor, you go and you take steps to get it fixed, and that's not some like crazy abstract thing. So that's my hope for sharing this with you, and that's really our hope at Plannr, is to just, oh yeah, thank you. Thank you to everyone being so sweet in the chat. But yeah, that's really our whole thing at Plannr. Just, you know, it's a normal thing. You go and you work it out. But yeah, and also to show that getting help is possible. It really is. As you saw, my path to like healing was not linear by any means. It was, okay, I had the anxiety, then I started learning how to deal with it. Then, oh, another thing, then another thing. But, you know, through a combination of therapy, of self-care, of medication, and sometimes medication is a very good option, but, you know, you have to weigh the pros and cons with that. And through learning coping skills and things like that, you really can feel better and you are not stuck where you are. So yeah, as I said before, healing isn't linear and it's not necessarily a quick process, you know, like as you guys saw it from what I told you, it's not a quick process, but it is worth it in the end. And then also, I know we have a lot of students here because Plannr is, you know, for students by students. You are not the only one that is struggling with their mental health. If you are experiencing a mental illness, if you are feeling stressed or you know, low moods, it's totally okay, and it's totally something that everyone deals with, especially now with COVID and things like that too, has been a huge stressor for people. So it is a-okay. It is something that there are like concrete steps that you can take to feel better. So yeah, those are the big takeaways from that. But next I have how to get your self-help. So if you're experiencing symptoms that we talked about in my presentation or in Rose's presentation, and you said, oh, that sounds like me. Maybe I need to go find a therapist. Maybe I need to go talk to someone. First of all, it's awesome that you identified there was a problem and you want to take steps to fix it. That's very brave. That's like the big first step, what you want to do. So you want to tell your parents, you want to tell your guardians, your teachers, your counselor, your school psychologist, anyone that's like a trusted adult in your life. They will help you get on the right track for treatment. Maybe you don't have a mental illness, but you just feel overwhelmed. You're just stressed from school or you're just stressed from life in general. You don't have to have a mental illness to go to therapy. That's a big thing. You don't have to. You could just be feeling stressed and overwhelmed with your life. Go to therapy. Therapy is for everyone. So maybe you don't want to tell your parents. Maybe your parents or your guardians are going to be like, no, you're fine, and shoot you down. As you know, this Plannr is for students by students. So as students, we go to our teachers, we go to our counselors. There are people in place. Yes, exactly. As someone wrote in the chat, don't be discouraged if the first person you tell isn't supportive. You try and try again, because as I like to say, I'm my own advocate. No one else is going to advocate for me. No one else is going to advocate for you. You see you're having an issue, you have to go and you have to keep trying again in order to get yourself the help that is out there. So yeah, absolutely. Don't get discouraged. Yeah, okay, so that should be like your first step. Talk to your parents, teachers, counselors, things like that. So then second step is get yourself set up with a therapist. They can help you get set up with a therapist. Or I love Psychology Today. I think Psychology Today is the greatest thing ever. You can search people up based on the issues you're having, based on like what type of therapist you want, things like that. And they will teach you coping skills and self-care tips and things like that. So then, as we talked about before, someone asked me, let me scroll up, how to find a good therapist. There are so many problems with them accepting insurances. Yes, absolutely, Nicole, I agree with you. That is a tough thing. You know, the healthcare system obviously is not on our side with mental health and things like that. So it is definitely tough. It's going to be a lot of searching, maybe talking to someone like from your insurance, a lot of Google searching, a lot of calling. But how to find a good one is really to go there and talk to them for a consultation and see if you vibe with them pretty much. Do you vibe with them? Do you like them? Do they match your personality? Things like that. That's going to be the big main thing, to find someone that you like, because you're going to therapy not to feel uncomfortable. You're going to therapy for it to be a safe space. And if you don't feel comfortable with them, that's a big no-no. So what are the best therapy methods? Okay, so there's no one good therapy model for everyone. It's kind of what you feel and what matches your symptoms. I have always done just regular talk therapy where I just go talk and I'm like, this is what happens and this sucked and whatever. That is great for some people. For other people, you need to do like CBT or DPT, which is like, you kind of you pick like the thought, like the distressing thought, and you go and kind of restructure that thought. So I can't tell you one way or another which one is going to work for you or for your friend that's in this situation. You can look into more yourself and see which one like jumps out at you. If not, again, it would really be just going to consultations and trying things out and seeing which one is for you. Yeah, so I hope I answered your question, Nicole. Okay, a parent with a 13-year-old. Okay. All right, so I would say, now again, I am not a professional. By no means, I'm just going based off totally my experiences and my knowledge that I have. I've been going through this for like 10 years now of my life. Again, I'm not a professional, but I'm going to say, it seems like he's showing some of the signs and you have the issue. That would be, at least for me, if it were me, I would say maybe we want to at least start talking to him and seeing if he is really experiencing those things, and then maybe trying to go talk to, his school psychologist or his school social worker, maybe tell them what you're seeing in him and say, I have this problem too, because, it is, it can be like hereditary and you can get it passed down. So I would say definitely if you're seeing it and you see that, it could be a problem in the future, go and talk to someone about it. He blows you off a lot. Yeah, I know. It is definitely a tough situation, especially for a kid that is experiencing problems like that. That's going to make it worse for them to reach out and to actually talk to you. But again, as one of the other amazing participants said, you got to try again. You got to talk to the, someone that is, there are a lot of people there to help you at the school even. So yeah, that's my advice for you. Again, I'm by no means a professional, but that's what I would try to do. So yeah, okay. So then how to help a friend. So, yes, absolutely, Nicole. So if you were thinking about one of your friends while listening to this presentation and you felt like they needed extra help or support, how you can help. You can be supportive and be there to listen and encourage them to come to you if they need to vent. But do not stress yourself out from their situation. You have to put limitations on your willingness to help. Of course you want to help, and of course you want to be a great friend. I have been in this situation before. I've always been the type of friend, because I've been through it. So I've always been the type of friend to like notice these things in my friends and be like, oh, this is not good. Like you're getting on a wrong path. And then I end up like being the group therapist, which is fine. And I do like, that's what I want to do in the future and everything. But, you can't let it get to you either. So, because unfortunately, you can suggest and you can do all these things, but unless they're going to take the concrete steps to do it, you can only do what you can do for them. But yeah, just be there to listen, encourage them, suggest talking to a trusted adult, going to therapy, offer to be there with them while they have this talk with the trusted adult. Really just be supportive. But again, I want to stress, don't take it all on you, their struggles. So yeah, okay. I think that is the end of my presentation. If anyone has any additional questions, anything I can answer about some of my experiences or things like that, I see in the chat. Try to use your common experience as a way to start talking to them. They may be feeling, yes, absolutely. If you see these types of signs coming up in your friends, you can absolutely use a common experience. But especially if you're seeing like suicidal ideation, you really should step in and try to see what you can do to help there. So yeah. Okay, does anyone have any additional questions for me? I also have my email up there. Again, I'm not a mental health professional and I can't give you professional advice, but if you did want to reach out to me, I'm here. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's kind words in the chat. Okay. So I did have some activities planned and we have went on longer than I thought we were gonna. Oh, okay, I see something in the chat. How to not, like what's too much, how to not go overboard. Oh, like how to not go overboard talking to your friends type thing? Oh, if it's your kid. Oh, how to not adult talk them into sharing experiences. Okay. If it's your kid, I mean, honestly, as much as this sucks, you can't really push anything out of them, because if you are constantly being pushy, they're going to close off even more. I was that kid in that situation. My parents were being pushy about it, and I was like, you're going to keep pushing me about it, I'm not going to give you anything. So you don't want to be too pushy. It is really, really a tough situation. Like, thankfully, I was a kid that saw like that I needed help, like I was struggling, but there is a lot of like, what's the word, like shame that comes with it. So don't push your kid. Yeah, you're a pusher. Yes, my parents were also pushers. They're gonna come to you if it becomes too much, but I would also say, the school psychologist is there, the counselor is there. Maybe you try to set it, maybe you tell the counselor your concern and they talk to them. Sometimes having it come from an outside person is better than it coming from you. So like, here's a good example. I am learning how to drive right now. My dad is trying to teach me how to drive, and it is not going well because he is my father. But when, someone from the outside tries to teach me, for example, the driver's ed instructor, I am more willing to hear what they have to say. So if you do go to that outside person, the counselor, the school psychologist, whatever, they may be more willing to hear it from them, and that might be able to get the ball rolling a bit. I hope that was some good advice. Yes, you have to pass driving to someone else. Yes, as much as I try to do it with my dad, he can't take me. I can't take it from him. But yes, all right, so we only have a couple minutes left, but I don't want to rush if anyone has any questions. You don't want them to feel like you've got it behind their back. That's very, very true. Yes, definitely. That is a good way that I honestly didn't even think about. But yeah, okay. So, all right, I have a couple activities that we're gonna go through real quick. This might go over a couple minutes. We'll see how it goes. But if our presenters did want to add anything when we're going through these examples, definitely feel free. I have some things about stigma, so that would be for Densika. But yeah, okay, let's see what I got here. Scenarios. Okay, so one student, Scott, has been a continuous top student in his grade. Lately, he's been experiencing a lack of motivation, and his grades have been dropping. He's starting to feel like he's failing his teachers and parents, and he feels burnt out. Now, I just want to say, I think we've all been Scott. I think we've all been in Scott's position. It's tough, especially now being a student during COVID and everything. A lack of motivation, absolutely. I think it's a thing that a lot more students are experiencing. So what should Scott do? Scott should talk to his school counselor and see what resources are available to him. He can possibly see a peer tutor, find a therapist, or notify his teachers about the situation. And notifying his teachers about the situation may take some pressure off of him. And then also talking over with his parents and teachers, because the idea of failing their teachers and parents is merely an assumption. A lot of times anxiety and depression and things like that puts like these fake ideas into our head. And, it turns things that no one even said into like things that feel so real. So like that was only an assumption. If he talks about it with the teachers and the parents, that could change for the better, because he doesn't feel like he's failing them. And then also keeping track of his achievements, not his failures, only his achievements. This can help him, feel more proud of himself. Like, yeah, I can do things. It's not always what my brain is telling me, that like, I can't ever do anything right. I have done things right. So yeah, that's Scott. Let's see, I think we have another scenario. Okay, Aaron, yes, we have Aaron. So Erin's day began before the pandemic with her going to school, spending time with her friends, and actively participating in sports. After the pandemic, a lockdown was imposed in her country, and she started attending online classes. She missed going to school and seeing her friends. Soon she started to experience anxiety about the state of the world, and she was having panic attacks, and she knows she shouldn't be having panic attacks, but she doesn't really know what to do. Now again, COVID, I think there's definitely some level of anxiety about the world with COVID and everything like that. But what should Aaron do? Again, Aaron, this is the main thing, is to seek out help. I hope we're noticing a pattern here. We want to seek out help when we feel like this. Talk to your parents, your friends, trying to find a therapist. And then also for Aaron, she could look up coping skills, reading a book, exercising, eating healthier, like Ro had said. And also I will be sending you that presentation, by the way. Identifying her triggers is a big one. What triggers her? If we can identify our triggers, we can either avoid them or like debunk them and learn why this is, why this should not be triggering us. Sometimes triggers are legit, but other times it's like my anxiety, like especially for me, my anxiety comes up with these things and it's like, that's not even true. Why is this setting me off? So, Okay, so then, and Densika, feel free to chime in here, but stigma examples. So I have a couple examples. Let's do this one just for the sake of time. Okay, we're skimming to number 3. So for the sake of time, here's an example number 3, which we didn't go through the first 2, but it's fine, of stigma. I heard that you started going to therapy. Why would you even need it? It's not like anything traumatic happened to you. So I think we can all off the bat kind of tell that this is not a good thing. Something big and traumatic is not the only reason for going to therapy. Again, I'm reiterating my point before. Therapy is for everyone and anyone that can benefit from it. By saying statements like the one above, you can make the person feel like going to therapy is wrong and you can stop them from reaching out. So if you want to restructure this sentence, you would say, I heard that you started going to therapy. I'm so happy for you for reaching out and getting the help that you needed. Just know you can reach out to me too. So instead of just being judgy or maybe using your preconceived notions about therapy, we want to be supportive. All right, so I think we got one more. Yes, we got one more. So saying you look sad all the time. Are you depressed or something? Looking sad all the time doesn't necessarily mean that the person is depressed. Even if they are, asking in this way is insensitive and may make the person feel uncomfortable. They might not know how to answer that because you would make them feel unsafe in that environment. So a restructure, hey, I noticed that you're not being your usual self. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always here for you. Again, we want to be more on the supportive side and not on the like judgy side of things. So yeah, I think that's all I have for you. Yes, that's all I have for you. And I apologize, we've gone over on the time a little bit, but thank you so much for coming. I've added hotlines there so you can take a quick screenshot of that if you ever feel like you need it. And yeah, I'll be sending you guys through email the presentations. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. All right.